This video is a long time coming. Now, as many of you or some of you may know, not only do I enjoy painting Warhammer figures, but I'm also a musician by night, and my band Goblin Hovel takes a lot of influence from high fantasy, from folklore, and other varieties of goblin mythos. So today, we're going to be painting a common goblin from Warhammer 8th edition. I know, it's not going too far back into the past, especially considering that common goblins have been in the Warhammer system since 1983. But what strikes me about this particular miniature that I've got right now is that it only appeared on the scene maybe around 2010, 2012, something like that, and it lasted for about 2 or 3 editions, and that is it. The only other miniature that had that short of a lifespan was the Necron Pariah. And these guys currently are out of print, just like the Necron Pariah. So while it may not be that far back in the past, it is certainly history now.
I'm going to be honest, I'm used to painting Night Goblins. You know, these guys. The ones that kind of popularized the image of the Warhammer Goblin in the modern day. But the common goblins kind of get overshadowed, even though they came first. Now they're lost in the white noise of Warhammer history.
But these common goblins originate from a myth and from a mythos and archetype that has had a profound effect on me as a musician and on my life philosophy in general.
It is no secret that Goblin Hovel strives to emulate the appearance of these goblins to add to the weirdness and mischievous effect of our music.
Not only did this affect me, of course, but a few of my friends have also kind of latched onto this goblin archetype and imagery. Most noticeably among them is my friend Chancho, who is the current founder and central piece of the band The Goblvnz March, among others.
The Goblins March is a band with a story centering around a young goblin bard who must navigate the battlescape of a fantastical world fighting against men, elves, and dwarves. He's aided in his efforts in part by Shaman, an elderly, surly goblin that is by far my favorite character in the story.
So today, I'm doing a little tribute to my band and to Chancho's band by painting a miniature that he inspired me to paint. His figure of Shaman now inspires me to paint my own little Shaman. So here we go. Let's get started.
Immediately I fuck up by using a darker green to base coat this time. Ugh.
I think the biggest setback in this process started right about here when my pot of deep brown paint that I usually paint leather and wood with dried up completely. I wasn't able to use it, so I had to run to the store to get new brown paint. And boy was I surprised when they didn't have it.
Instead, I was left with this little soil color. Soil my ass, look at that! When have you ever seen magenta soil? Okay, time for plan B. I'm just gonna paint this whole thing khaki colored and then ink brown over it. That should do the trick, right? So once we do that, we're gonna leave that aside for a moment, and then we're gonna go back to the goblin's skin. Now I know I base coated it dark green, but all that means is I'm going to dry brush up with various lighter shades of green. See, same effect as if I would have inked it the first time, except a little smoother. What was I thinking not doing this before?
Painting gobos without ink. The natural way, because they deserve it.
Alright. So let's get on to inking the wood on the staff. So as you can see, I don't really need to work too hard to get the details to pop. I just gotta basically just maneuver the brush throughout the details to get the wood and leave the strings and bones untouched. Easily done. And with the contrast paints, I don't even have to worry about getting a thin coat or thick coat. The contrast paint does all the work for me. Alright, so now I've got contrast paint, dry brush, contrast paint, dry brush. It all works out in the end. Every single technique I've ever used comes together in one model. And it continues to do so as I give this little staff here all the detail work it needs with my highlighting brush. Yeah, just picking out the nose, the teeth, the jawbones, the brows on the skull. Yeah, that's the line highlighting coming into there too, I guess. So not only did I contrast paint the wood of the staff, dry brush up the bone color, but I'm also going to be adding another technique here too. It may look like I'm globbing on some white, but I'll just take most of that off by rubbing it with my fingers, spreading the pigment around a little bit, giving it kind of a dry brush look, but not quite. It's a little thicker than a dry brush, so it gives it a bit more of a consistent color. Alright, so the next step is basically all the detail work on the staff. So that moon, these little coins here that need to be painted gold. The next step after that will probably be to address the gem in the eyeball of the skull like that. And from there we can start picking out a few more highlights. Like the strings here, I don't want to leave them that contrast paint color. I'm going to make them look like actual leather strings and ties. Alright, that's looking good. Now back to the goblin proper. I'm laying down more of a base coat to contrast paint over. So the loincloth looks weirdly tan now, but I will contrast it red. The bones I'll dry brush up, as you see here. And then same with the head wrappings and arm wrappings. Just to give them a little texture, I'll dry brush them with bone too. The next order of business is of course to pick out details like his little ring and the coin around his arm. From there then, I can just go to highlighting the loincloth with a light shade of red and a detail brush like you see here. Pretty straightforward. Now I'm just going to dry brush a shade of human flesh over the contrast paint of the cloak, and after that, I'll give it a wolf's fur texture on top with a variety of different grays. Yeah, wolf fur, human skin, common goblin genius. The next order of business will of course be highlighting the hair with a lighter shade of red. And after that, we're going to focus on those eyes. Just get in there with a little detail brush and got one. How about the other side? Okay, get in there real quick and almost got it too. Okay, not really, but got it now.
This is another one of those miniatures where you think, this is good enough, we can stop here. But am I content with where we are right now?
Not yet, Goblins, not yet.
I'm going to make that hair really stand out. In other words, I'm going to dry brush up with oranges and yellows until it looks like his head is on bloody fire. Inch by inch, bit by bit, red by orange until at last I just need a little bit of whitish yellow at the tip, and this guy is looking pretty fiery. Alright, after this, let's proceed to the mycelium below his feet there. These little mushrooms I'm going to end up highlighting with kind of a bright bone white, and then I'm going to make them purple and yellow because those are nice springtime colors, and this strikes me as a very springtimey kind of goblin. I never thought I'd say this, but I think I've spent the most effort on a base of a miniature on this model as I've ever done in my life. So you see, brushing up the stones here, just making it look a little more like a dingy little pile of rocks that he's perched on, a cairn if you will. And it's leading right into the main square base itself. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to highlight his belly, arms, and face a little bit to give him more of a bright edge. It's nothing big, but I feel like doing it. So after I've done all the sticky outy bits and given them a nice coat of light green, I'm going to zoom back in on his eye and try to give him a little yellow pupil gazing awkwardly and grumpily to the side. This will give him that Shaman cynicism kind of look. And I think I nailed it. Yeah, not bad all things considered. So here we have it, Shaman in all his glory, ready to lead the charge in the big battle. Yeah.
And there we have it. I would say that it was certainly a different experience than painting Night Goblins. The tendency to go brighter is something that I'm not used to, but I think turned out very well. And in an essence, I did what I was trying to do and captured the joviality, the curiosity, but also that little dark bit of humor and impending doom that Chancho gets with his music when he writes for the Goblins March in this little miniature right here. I hear a lot of bright tones in his music when I listen to it, and that's what I put here, but at its core, much like the miniature, it is still a goblin. So that itself is enough to have that air of menace while still having those bright colors attached to it. So I hope I did both Chancho and this miniature some justice. I'd like to hear what you guys would think about it, or what you would have done differently, or anything like that in the comments. But until then, I will leave you with the parting thought that next time we are going to stay in the fantasy realm, but we're going to go, unfortunately, more towards the elvish realm of things again. So I shall see you then.